Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Luke and today I'll be talking about Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. This marks my second 2025 release to see. I recently watched the first Den of Thieves, which came out in 2018. If you subscribe to my channel, you can check out the review for that. So now let's get into the sequel. So this takes place some years after the first one, where we are back with Nick and Donnie. Nick, not really sure what he's been up to. It's hard to really tell if he's still on the force, if he's been laid off. He witnesses something on TV which he believes is Donnie, and then he takes this information to his superiors as he wants to reopen that case to find this thief. Essentially what happens is his superiors are basically shutting it down, stating that nothing was stolen. Every bank that they looked at, especially the one from the first one, does not mark as any money being stolen. So they just believe it's a closed case. If this thief is still out there, who knows? Or they just don't buy that anything actually happened that day, which is really weird with the massive shootout that happens at the end of the first movie. Either way, they basically just send Nick away. He ends up getting some intel which leads him to France, where he goes to connect with the law enforcement there, and basically in a really lazy way is able to view some video footage, and then all of a sudden he's able to meet up with Donnie. And at least all of that happens in the first part of this movie. I think the movie as a whole is fine. It is in a subgenre that I enjoy, which is like these bank heist movies. So before we get into any more stories, I'll just kind of state, like, recently watching the first movie and then seeing this one, it feels like a puzzle that I can see where they're wanting to go. It's just that there's too many missing pieces that we're witnessing them like lose as we're watching the movie, if that makes any sense, which is a very frustrating thing, because this franchise that we're getting into could be something really, really cool. But the problem with this one is it falls into the same things that the first one had, starting with the runtime. This is almost a 2.5 hour movie. I don't think you feel it as much as you do in the first one, but there are a number of moments in this that were not necessary. They could have pulled out very quickly. One of which being, if you remember the first movie, there's this whole thing with Nick and his family, primarily his wife. That's kind of addressed in the opening sequence here, and then it's quickly like just moved past. But there's a lot of just really weird moments that's more of like character bonding that, yeah, it's kind of needed, but there's a lot of it that just feels like fluff, just a lot of extra stuff. Whereas so much is rushed at the beginning of the movie, it kind of takes you away in a moment of like, how did these characters connect so quickly? Like, where were the clues, or how was Nick able to find Donnie, and just a lot of these kind of moments. And it's even questioned later on, but we don't really get a good answer. But as we move past that, we kind of meet the new team, which again, now we have this whole new team. We don't really know what happened to members of the team in the first movie. Maybe they're still around. Maybe they could come up in a, potential third movie if we're getting that. Who knows? But that's another problem. And this is, again, similar to what we've dealt with in the first movie. There are a lot of different thieves, but we don't get enough screen time with each of them. It almost seems like in this one they are trying to correct that, where we do get to meet each of the teams and know what their role is. But the problem is every person seems to have a motive, but we don't want to focus on all these different motives. So there's a couple of team members that kind of disappear for a good bulk of the movie, and then we see them again, but we don't really know the full story. Like, why are they distanced from the core team? They're never really brought up. The main people never question, like, where did they go? Are we still using them? Did we split? It's very, very confusing. It adds layers of frustration. But when we get to the main thing, which is the heist, and that's the real focus here, is the heist. I will say the third act is quite enjoyable. It is super tense. My palms are sweating. I was on the edge of my seat because it's kind of fascinating to see a law enforcement officer, partnering up with thieves and kind of going through with this major heist, because now they are attempting to rob the Bank of Diamonds. Now there is a subplot in here which is somewhat interesting, but it's really meant as a way to carry on this story into something in the future. And there's a couple of points made at the end where it kind of leaves it open in a way to think of like, what is the character Nick up to? What is his motive? Where is he going for? But hopefully these are things that'll be answered in a third movie. I think the look of this is great, the music's solid, the acting is solid. It's exactly what you get in the first one. A couple of silly moments, but we are getting more of this almost buddy cop, let's just call it a buddy cop movie between Nick and Donnie. I think they've got solid chemistry, and I definitely would want to see them carry this on into a third movie. But it is unfortunate that this does fall into the same traps as the first movie. Solid watch, I think, but not the greatest. What do you think of the Den of Thieves movie? Have you seen them both? Do you have a favorite between the two? Are you expecting a third? If there is a third movie, what do you think that storyline would be? I'm banking that we'll get a third movie, maybe to close everything out, unless they just see this expanding beyond that. Hopefully this won't become like another Fast and the Furious style franchise. I would totally be fine if we can get one more movie to really kind of settle the scores between these characters and kind of close out some form of a story. Have my thoughts around that, but we'll wait and see what happens. So thanks so much for stopping by. Be sure to subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. That helps out this channel so much. And once again, thanks so much. I'll be back later this week with more reviews. See you soon.